What is up, Nico Nation? Welcome back to Snap Count, our seasonal news series where we highlight all NFL news going on. Of course, today is the trade deadline. Just ended at 3 p.m., 4 p.m., but we got a lot of things to cover. I am your host, Niko Chambers, alongside my co-host, P Dunn. P Dunn, what's up, man?
What's up, man? I'm stoked for this. We had a crazy day. This was wild. This was one of the crazier trade deadlines, if not the craziest trade deadline we've seen in a really long time. And I'm super stoked to get into this for sure.
You have no idea what's going on, you can look at the thumbnail right here and you could see, maybe get you an idea of what it is. But we'll go straight into it with the biggest move of the day, the shocking move of the day. The New York Jets moving on from Sauce Gardner, but also trading him to what is perceived the biggest contender now in the AFC, to the Indianapolis Colts. The deal, remnants of the deal, included two first round picks, one in 2026, one in 2027, and wide receiver AD Mitchell, who was taken in the second round last year with the Colts. Pete, on after just seeing this thing unfold and unravel, what are your initial thoughts?
This is wild. I mean, it's wild from both perspectives. I think obviously the Jets, looking at how much it took for the Colts to send in order to get Sauce, you obviously see a stance that this wasn't a guy they really wanted to let go of, and the Colts just made them an offer they can't refuse. I mean, when you give up two firsts and an AD Mitchell, who's again, like you said, like a player, he got drafted last year in the second round. Last year. Like he's known for this one bad play, but this was a very sought after talent, a guy that both of us were really high on throughout the draft prospect or process. Like this is a great haul for the Jets. And I think if you're the Colts, this is obviously they were willing to overspend, but I think if you're a Colts fan, like I don't think you should be very down on this. I think you got a really good player. And that was by far your biggest position of need was A at corner and somewhere in that secondary. And you now have someone who I think is going to play a lot better. He's gotten a lot of criticism lately because of he hasn't played great. I don't think he's been very motivated to go out there and play for this Jets team. I think when you will see a lot more of the player he was as a prospect of those first 2 years in the league than you will the player you've seen recently.
I think it's a good move. I think it's a win-win for both teams here. Obviously, this Colts team, where they are in the standings, number one seed in the AFC, they truly believe that they have something with Daniel Jones and they have something with his defense, but they also want to build on it. And, in order to be contenders in this really deep AFC, you really got to be able to protect, not only the football, which they do so well with their offensive line, and you got Jonathan Taylor over there, Daniel Jones playing out of his mind, but you got to be able to stop people on defense, and you got a lot of really good receivers in the AFC. You know, this move is monumental for them, and really, it's going to come down to how good this season is for the Colts and how good the next season is. Because if this is a failure, if they can't make it out of the divisional round, this trade, you're going to look back at this trade and be like, that was not worth it. But from a standpoint as of today, is there a clear winner on who won this trade?
I think the Jets clearly won this trade. This is one of the biggest hauls we've seen in a long time for any player. Anytime you get your hands on two first round picks and a developmental receiver, like a guy who has not been that, but has flashes of shown that he can be a really successful receiver in this league, I think you take that as a win. I cannot believe that they gave up this much for Sauce Gardner. And I think that yes, there's going to be positives. I think the Colts obviously they sent this pick for a reason. They or those picks for a reason. They believe that they're getting good players, so they think they won the trade. But I think the winner of the trade is absolutely the Jets.
I remember a time where the New York Jets dealt a player from their secondary who was an all-pro caliber player. That was Jamal Adams. And you saw the return that they got in those picks of Elijah Vera Tucker, Garrett Wilson, trading that to the Seahawks, who didn't do too bad on their share on the other side of it. But that was looked like a lopsided trade when Jamal Adams didn't necessarily pan out in Seattle. So it'll be very interesting to see here. Real quickly, though, obviously the addition of Sauce is going to make this team better. How good is this Colts team now?
I think we'll see. I think you look directly towards Daniel Jones with everything that happens with this team at this point. A lot of the reason that he's played so well is because of the running game that has been able to be provided for him. And so two things there. When you're able to run the ball, usually you're ahead. right? And so you can establish, Jonathan Taylor scoring like 2 touchdowns a game, averaging, right? And so they're leading in these games. They're able to take the clock down. And if you're the on the opposite sideline, what are you doing? You're throwing the ball. You're trying to get back into the game. And now you have a guy in Sauce Gardner who's going to be able to take a lot of that away. He's going to be able to be a huge weapon for that defense to be like, okay, you're going to throw the ball because we've been ahead. Okay, now you have to throw it on Sauce Gardner. When previously they've done a great job at continuing to play really good defense, but that secondary hasn't been able to hold up to where as elite as every other unit on that team has been. The secondary is going to be a lot better, and I think this team's going to be a lot better because of it. Looking out in the playoff side of things, we've seen Daniel Jones play in a playoff game before. He played really well in that playoff game. A lot of people don't want to talk about it, but he did when he was playing with the Giants on that playoff game. So we'll see. He's obviously someone who hasn't been tested there a lot, but when that playoff rolls around, it will be on his shoulders for sure.
Not a dramatically difficult schedule coming up for the Colts. They got a lot of those, AFC South divisional teams that they can kind of beat up on. A lot of injured teams. But it'll be really interesting to see who wins this trade in 2, 3 years. Definitely come back to this video when we know the answer to that. We're going to move on to the other blockbuster thing that came out of nowhere. And of course, it has to do with the New York Jets, and it solidifies the fire sale that has occurred for this team. They are 100% in rebuild mode. But let's talk about the details. Quinnen Williams dealt to the Dallas Cowboys for a first and a second round pick. That second round pick will be this year. The first rounder will be the following. And defensive tackle Mozzie Smith, who 2023, I think it was, he was a first round pick for that Cowboys team. Didn't really pan out. But that will be the haul for all pro level defensive tackle Quinnen Williams. Pete Dunn, just first thoughts of this trade.
I think you summed it up with the burn it all down. I mean, this is just crazy. I remember I was texting you earlier, like this is what it feels like when you take over a Madden franchise and you just like dump everything, get as many picks as you can, like make it your team. Like this is a really wild thing that we haven't seen in a long time from a team, especially mid-season. This regime is trying to make it their own and trying to start from scratch. And we'll see how it works. They've got 5 first round picks over the next 2 years. It's going to be really fascinating to see what directions they go there. I think that, obviously you expect the Colts pick to be pretty good. So that's not one that's going to be, used for a quarterback, but it could be used to move up for a quarterback if those Jets don't end up with that first overall pick. And so I think that's what they're angling towards. I think they're angling towards a new regime with a new quarterback. And I think what a great way to do it rather than collecting all these first round picks, and then a guy that with Mozzie Smith, I don't think anybody's really expecting to take a big step after what he's been through, but that's not what this trade is for. This is a haul that they receive for these two players, and it's going to be really interesting to see what they do with them.
I think it's interesting because obviously, the whole Aaron Rodgers saga and everything that was going on, this team was deemed one quarterback away from playoffs and all of these things, and they never achieved that quite really at all. It was absolutely traumatic and terrible, as it always is for this Jets team. But it's just shocking to me because these are two cornerstone pieces that kind of you're building, and really what it sums up for all of the Jets fans out there who are not in the locker room, who are not in the building, is that this team is way farther than what is really on paper. And I think we knew that, where they're sitting this year in the division 1-7, like it's just not a good year. And I think with the new head coach coming in, with Aaron Glenn, obviously something was wrong where he didn't feel like he could go through with these guys. So they get the major return that they got. But let's switch to the Cowboys side for a second. What does this trade mean for the Cowboys? We saw Jerry talking about it or trying to hype it up yesterday. Like, what is your takeaway for this Dallas team?
I'm pretty fascinated by this. I think that you look at the Micah thing, everything always comes back to the Micah thing, and you take those assets that you got from Micah towards this, like these picks. This is a translation of assets, and you think about, okay, well, would you rather have Micah or would you rather have Quinnen Williams? And I don't think the difference is as big as people think. I think Quinnen Williams is one of probably the top 2 or 3 best defensive tackles in the NFL right now, and especially in the run defense game, which is what the Cowboys have been absolutely terrible at. So I like the pick on paper. I really this feels like a win now thing. This feels, you look at the other blockbuster we've had today, like what team traded with the Jets? It was a team that is one of the best in the AFC that is looking to go win a Super Bowl this year. And then you've got the Cowboys. Like that's not where the Cowboys are right now. They're not looking for that. They're not looking. I mean, Jerry Jones would love to, but that team's not going to make it there. They're not going to win a Super Bowl. They're probably not going to make the playoffs this year. And so I think it's really fascinating. It's definitely positioning for next year. This is not a 1 year rental. This guy's going to be around next year and he's going to be really good next year. He's still, I think he's 27, if I'm not mistaken, 28. Like he's still a youngish player, with a lot of time left. Again, it feels like a win now pick, and the Cowboys are definitely not in a win now situation.
I mean, they just lost yesterday on Monday Night Football
Yeah.
to a
Bad,
backup quarterback
bad.
on a team that's not good also,
Yeah.
like a terrible team that has also 3 wins. Um, I thought the Cowboys were better than them. They clearly aren't. So if you're not better than the Cardinals with a backup quarterback and you're going out to make a move like this, it's kind of head scratching for me. I think obviously the Jets massive winner in this deal. Um, it just doesn't really make as much sense for me. But in hindsight, we'll go back to the Jets real quick. With the combination of the Sauce and the Quinnen Williams now you all of a sudden have a fortress for this supposed quarterback savior that needs to come through this organization. If you are the GM of the New York Jets and you have five, six, seven first and second round picks within the next 2 years, what are you doing and who are you going to get to save this franchise?
Well, the scary thing for everyone else, and the really great thing for the Jets is they just lost their two best players and they were already in contention for the first overall pick. Like they might not even need to use other assets to trade up. They might just have the first overall pick on their own. And so they're going to draft a quarterback at the 1-1. They are either going to be there themselves or they're going to trade up. And so they're going to draft a quarterback. And the great thing for them is they have two really good tackles they already have that in place. They have a good young O line outside of that they already have in place. You have who I think is a really good running back already in place with a top 10 receiver already in place. And so there's going to be a new offensive coordinator that's going to come in. You have to have one, right? You have to have more pieces on defense. But this quarterback, as crazy as it is to say about the Jets, is coming into a good situation. It's going to be wild to see where they go. You've got there's plenty of options at the top, with Dante Moore, Ty Simpson, and Fernando Mendoza. We'll see which one of those come out in the draft this year. We'll see which one of those guys the Jets are going to want to go towards. But it's going to be really fascinating to see, like, it's so weird to say that he's in a good situation, whichever one it is, but they're walking into a good situation with the Jets if they can put the right coaching staff around the kid.
Very shocked. You talked about it, star running back Breece Hall did not get dealt today, especially on that last year of his rookie contract. What do you make of that?
I mean, I told you before we got on, like if I would have woke you up this morning and said, "All right, Nico, there's two Jets players that are getting traded today," like he would have been the first one you would have said. And I am very surprised that he did not get traded. It seemed like they were asking for a third round pick in return for Breece Hall, and I'm really shocked that they didn't get that. Especially a team like the Chiefs, a team like the Chargers who need running back help. You can get a really good one, and guys like him, guys like Jermaine Johnson, like I for sure thought they were at least going to be in the talks of getting traded. And I know there was a lot of conversations about Breece Hall, but I think the biggest thing looking, from this Jets team is I think this is ultimately a big vote of confidence for Aaron Glenn, that the organization has in Aaron Glenn. I think Aaron Glenn is saying, like, I can't win right now. Like, I need some more years. These guys are only going to get older. And these guys are going to carry on, especially with Sauce, that locker room problem that the Jets have developed. And so I think this is just a start from scratch thing. Like you said, we're burning it all down, but they're burning it all down with Aaron Glenn. And I think that is a vote of confidence that he will be around, and I think he's going to be around for a while.
It should be really interesting to see. We had some more moves today, specifically in the wide receiver market, as the Raiders finally let Jacoby Meyers go to a different team. where they traded him to the Jaguars, and then the Seahawks, a really underrated one, bringing in Shaheed in a trade with the Saints today. From the first looks of both of these, is there one that stands out to you? Is there one that you really like?
I think the biggest winner out of the biggest player that won the most today out of any team in the entire NFL is Jackson Smith and Jigba. I think this opens up, so as good as he's been playing, having someone on that Seahawks team that can threaten the top level is just going to open up more for him. So I think that's going to be awesome for the Seahawks. I think just having that element, whether or not he produces a whole bunch or not, just having that element that defenses have to respect of when he's on the field, like he can beat you deep, and you have to respect that is going to open up so much for this already really scary Seahawks offense. Getting into the Jaguars thing, like I know it's Gladstone, I know it's a different regime, and I know they haven't paid him yet. This feels a lot like when the Jaguars extended Christian Kirk a couple years ago, and they gave up too many assets for a receiver that I don't think is going to be that good. I don't love this for either side. I love it for the Raiders because I think he wasn't trying for them. I don't think he was producing as much as he could have. But I don't think the Jaguars are going to get that much here. I don't really know what you're looking for out of, you already have a decently deep receiving core that's kind of crowded, especially with Travis Hunter trying to make his way in there. And I don't know. I don't love it for the Jaguars, but I'm telling you that that Seahawks trade, that's going to be pretty awesome.
I'm really excited. I mean, obviously, the big ticker here is that he knows kind of like this kind of offensive regime that we kind of have. He reunites with Clint Kubiak, who he played with last season, which that's a big thing. I think that's why he was in mocks and everything. He was targeted on coming to us because of that reason, and that's why you reunite him with them. And you got a bunch of weapons that you're kind of utilizing, but like they're kind of fighting for the same reps. Obviously, you have Cooper Kupp, great slot receiver. You don't really have that deep threat. You're going to Torrey Horton, who had a really good game recently. You got rookie receivers around. You got the double tight ends who are playing really well, but you needed this deep threat badly. You needed a deep threat for the longest time since Tyler Lockett obviously left. And that's going to bring, like you said, it's going to open up. It's just going to bring a lot more to this defense. I mean, this offense. And of course, you look at the running game and it hasn't really taken off, but I think this is going to open up the running game even more. Kenneth Walker, Charbonnet, they're going to do some things. I'm really excited to see that as a Seahawks fan, but also like this is going to be hard to defend. And then, I'll talk about Jacoby Myers real quick. I don't like the move either. I don't see it. I don't think he separates himself that much. I don't even think he's that honestly good of a receiver. They didn't give up too much, a fourth and a sixth. I think that fourth round pick is maybe a little much. I don't know though. Like it doesn't stand out to me. They have a bunch of like decent receivers on that team. Obviously, BTJ is a little banged up. I don't know what's going on with Travis Hunter, but like I don't know, especially with him being on that last year of his deal, would they even re-sign him? To me, it looks like a pick, like a win now pick where you're trying to compete, and that's like respectable, but it doesn't really do much for me. I don't really know what to make of it. I wouldn't be that excited if you are really a Jaguars fan. But as you said, if you're a Raiders fan, I would be hyped.
Yeah.
But talking about the Raiders, really, that wide receiver room's wide open. They just signed Tyler Lockett, but they got nobody really there. Is there any hope for this Raiders team going forward?
I think you look at Jack Besh. I think I think he's probably the guy that you have the most. Like, if you look 4 years down the road and you like, okay, is there anybody in this receiver core that's going to still be here? I think Jack Besh is maybe that guy. Um, I don't know though. Like, it's bad, and they just lost. They just lost Jacoby Myers. But like, you're not going to pull anybody in free agency. No receiver is going to want to come play in this offense right now. Like, I don't know. You're lucky you have Brock Bowers, who's produces like a top end receiver. He's fantastic. He had one of the best games we've seen all season last weekend from any player. And so he is truly generational, I think. And so you have that, but man, it's tough outside of that.
Slim Pickens for sure. We'll move on to the man who always finds a way to get it done, Howie Roseman. I don't know how he keeps doing it. We say this every year. We come on here, we talk about their depth chart. They're the deepest team in the league. They got some of the best starters at every position in the league. it's remarkable, but they did it again. What is your biggest takeaway from this? Where obviously, if you haven't heard, they get Jalen Phillips, Jair Alexander, and Michael Carter the second.
I mean, I think it's fascinating watching the way he does things that are just so like, oh, of course, like, of course that works. Like, of course that makes sense. And no one else in the league is doing things like this. So it's so obvious to him and to us that after the fact, it makes sense. Like those Jair Alexanders and Michael Carter picks are awesome. Those are not guys that are going to cost a bunch of money, and you're not expecting them to come in and be starters, but they're depth at a position that you need depth in really bad. Jair Alexander, you're betting on the fact that maybe he could return to some sort of glory that he used to be. It doesn't seem like it. But the Jalen Phillips pick is awesome. That's another thing that, they paid a premium price. I cannot tell you last time the Eagles gave up that expensive of a pick, maybe the AJ Brown trade, but that wasn't a third rounder. But he really likes to hold on to his picks. Usually it's him doing the opposite and holding on to picks, and he decided to use them on some players here. And I think that, down the road when it is January and February and you're watching these guys play on these playoff games and they're giving you good quality minutes, I think you're gonna look back and you're gonna be like, yeah, I mean, there's how he does it again. Like he always, like you said, like he always um seems to get it done. He's fascinating to watch him work.
I think it's been, very unique to see how much of a struggle that secondary, but really cornerback room has been for this Eagles teams. I think the safeties are playing great. You have Makuba out there, you have Blankenship, you have, you know, Cooper DeJean and all those guys out there. But I think it's very interesting with this Jair pick. I'm very, very intrigued. This reminds me a lot of Xavier Howard a few years ago when he got just traded away and then he was a Pro Bowler the next year. And, the same things with like Ramsey, you'll throw Ramsey to the side and he'll be a Pro Bowler the next year. When you have these star cornerbacks who like have a few bad years, they
Yeah.
can respond better than any other position. So
Mhm.
I would not be shocked if, you know, I don't really know the contract details with Jair right now, but like they'll bring him back next year and he's a Pro Bowler or something crazy like that. Michael Carter, I think he's a really good nickel back, and I think that's what they've been really looking for. But I think it'll be interesting to see where Phillips kind of fits in on this defense. You have a whole kind of at defensive end where what's his name? Mojo? I'm definitely botching that name. Ojimo, I don't really know. But anyway, but I feel like they definitely have a hole there. But do you see him playing a more linebacker alongside Bond and them? Like,
I definitely think he's going to be playing off the edge. I don't know if he's going to be a third down package kind of player. I don't know how much. Obviously, these first few weeks he's going to be getting, integrated into the defense, but I think long term, for at least this year, like you see him filling that role. I think they have a really good linebacking room. It's young, but it's good. And I think that Jalen Phillips played a lot of edge at Miami. He's skinnier. He's not a hand in the dirt guy, but I don't think the Eagles are expecting him to be. I think that they get him in, they get him rushing off the edge, getting some more pass rush. And I think that they would definitely look at that as a win.
100%, especially when they're trying to assert themselves as one of the top teams in the league in a year full of parity. We'll
Mm.
go here to the final trades. See if you have any noteworthy comments about them. Obviously, the Cowboys made a trade to go get Logan Wilson from the Bengals, who had kind of been benched for the rookie Barrett Carter, who had been playing really well. That was for a seventh rounder. So basically pennies. And then Draymond Jones going to Baltimore for a conditional fifth rounder. Is there anything that stands out to you from those two players?
I think Logan Wilson is probably um I don't know. Those are Cincinnati and Dallas are the two most confusing front offices that I can't figure out what they're doing. So it feels like the devil making a deal with the devil. But I think that that's a guy that you probably see making more of a splash next year. I think you see him becoming not the alpha of that room, but someone that can definitely not the alpha, but someone that's going to play in that room. They have a lot of young linebackers right now. And so they're going to need someone that's like Logan Wilson. And I think for a seventh round pick, that's a no-brainer. I do like the Trevor Penning move for the Chargers. Obviously really stinks for them as a year that I think they were going to have a lot of success. I thought this team was going to be really good. And when you lose both of your starters for the starting tackles, who was the strength of your team, I mean, that's the best tackle duo outside of the Eagles in the league. And so, like, I think a guy like Penning is going to at least help that position. I think he's going to be someone that can play in there. He's obviously did not live up to his first round pick. The Saints were ready to get rid of him, and the Chargers needed somebody to at least, put a band-aid over that hole in the wall. So I think that's what they found.
100%. I think a notable thing today, just kind of rounding out the day, Kayvon Thibodeau did not get traded.
Mm,
That was very interesting to me. I heard reports though that they were asking for a first round pick. Clearly, you're not going to get that for him.
yeah.
Do you make of maybe that move or any other move that didn't happen today that kind of like shocked you a little bit?
I mean, we already talked about the Brees one. I for sure thought he was going to get moved today. But Thibodeau, I thought had a chance of getting moved. But like you said, they were never going to get a first from him. I thought, thinking about the teams that would have made a move for him would be the Eagles. I thought that the Eagles could have made a shot at him. We've seen things like that happen in the past, like Chase Young, like with the Redskins, like after he came back from injury, was not that great. And you saw the 49ers before he was up for a contract year. We're like, okay, let's give him a shot. Like we want to make a Super Bowl run. Let's give him a shot. See if he can turn out to anything. Chase Young didn't play great for the Niners. I don't think Thibodeau would have been playing great for a team like the Eagles that wanted to make a Super Bowl run. So I think that if I was the Giants, I would have taken a second for him because I don't think he'll get extended. I think he's going to go to free agency. But I think you're right. The Brees Hall and the Thibodeau one were definitely the two most surprising ones players that I thought would get moved that didn't end up getting moved today.
I think there was mainly big names today. I was shocked there wasn't like that many minor ones. I'm pretty sure we covered every single one. Um, Very shocked that the teams didn't add on to what they definitely could have. But that's the NFL, and they trust those rosters. It'll be really interesting to see going forward. But that'll be all today from us. I'm your host, Niko the Draft Guy, alongside P Dunn. We thank you so much for your support. Stay tuned for our midseason review that will be coming out very shortly. Thank you guys for watching.